An email address. That's all it took to open a trading account on KuCoin, one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world, for the better part of 6 years. No name, no date of birth, no government ID, no proof of address, just an email address, and you could trade. By the time federal prosecutors were done counting, more than $9 billion in suspicious and criminal proceeds had moved through that exchange. Not because KuCoin's compliance program was outdated or under-resourced, because no identity verification was, for years, the product. I'm a CAM-certified financial crime investigator with over a decade in this field. This is the channel's second crypto exchange case, and it's a different failure mode than the last one. This isn't a program that grew faster than its controls. This is a company that built the absence of controls into its pitch. KuCoin was founded in 2017, according to the Department of Justice, until at least July 2023. Some sources cite the KYC rollout as August 2023. KuCoin did not require customers to provide any identifying information to open an account or trade. An email address was enough. No verification that the email even belonged to the person using it. This wasn't an oversight. Prosecutors were direct about the purpose. KuCoin's no-KYC policy was integral to its growth and success, and many customers used the platform specifically because of the anonymity it offered. Anonymity was the feature, not a gap in an otherwise compliant program. Even after KuCoin eventually introduced identity verification in 2023, it didn't apply the requirement retroactively to existing accounts. Every account opened in the platform's first 6 years kept trading exactly as it had before, anonymously, indefinitely, grandfathered out of the fix. Here's where the case moves from "we didn't verify identities" to something more deliberate. KuCoin is based offshore. The entity behind it, Pekin Global Limited, is registered in the Seychelles, and the company represented to regulators and to the public that it had no U.S. customers, and therefore no obligation to register with FinCEN or comply with U.S. money transmitter law in any state. That representation was false. According to the Department of Justice, KuCoin had a substantial U.S. customer base. Reporting later put the number at roughly 1.5 million U.S. users, and the platform took active steps to prevent those users from identifying themselves as being based in the United States when they opened accounts, not simply failing to ask. Actively structuring the platform so American users wouldn't flag themselves as American in the first place. No U.S. address field forcing a state selection. No geofencing that actually blocked U.S. IP addresses from completing registration. Nothing that would have generated the kind of customer data a real KYC program produces almost as a byproduct. That distinction matters for the same reason it mattered in TD Bank's case. A program that's merely thin is a resourcing problem. A program that's built to actively obscure who its customers are and where they're from is a different category of failure. One a regulator or a prosecutor treats as intentional, because the absence of the data itself becomes evidence of intent once a case is built. The dollar figures here are the largest of any case in this series to date. Prosecutors say KuCoin received more than $5 billion and sent out more than $4 billion in suspicious and criminal proceeds since the exchange's founding. Combined, over $9 billion, moving through a single exchange over roughly 6 years. That included proceeds tied to darknet markets, malware, ransomware, and fraud schemes. None of that is unique to crypto exchanges in isolation. Every payments platform on Earth eventually sees some criminal proceeds pass through it, and no compliance program catches all of it. What made KuCoin different is that its own no-KYC design meant there was, structurally, no reliable way to trace those proceeds back to an actual identity once they arrived. A functioning AML program doesn't need to catch every bad transaction in real time. It needs to leave a trail that lets investigators reconstruct who did what after the fact. KuCoin's account structure didn't produce that trail by design for 6 years across its entire customer base. The anonymity that attracted legitimate privacy-conscious users attracted exactly the same benefit for people moving stolen or illegal funds, and the platform had no way to tell the two apart because it had chosen not to ask. In January 2025, KuCoin pled guilty to one count of operating an unlicensed money-transmitting business. Pekin Global Limited agreed to forfeit approximately $184.5 million and pay a criminal fine of roughly $112.9 million, combined penalties of nearly $297 million. The company agreed to exit the U.S. market for at least 2 years. KuCoin's two co-founders, Chun Gan and K Tong, were charged individually and each agreed to forfeit $2.7 million personally. The Department of Justice agreed to defer prosecution against both of them for a 2-year period, meaning the individual charges don't simply disappear. They remain a live possibility contingent on compliance with the agreement's terms. The story didn't end with the DOJ resolution. In March 2026, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission issued its own order against Pekin Global Limited, converting what had been a temporary 2-year market exit into a permanent bar from serving U.S. users unless the company registers as a foreign board of trade, alongside a $500,000 civil penalty, small relative to the criminal case, because the CFTC's own order noted the substantial financial punishment had already landed through the DOJ settlement. The order also disclosed that KuCoin had earned at least $184.5 million in fees from its U.S. user base over the relevant period, the same figure, notably, as the criminal forfeiture amount. Two different federal authorities, using two different legal tools, a criminal plea and a civil regulatory order over a year apart, arrived at functionally the same conclusion. This exchange doesn't get to operate in the U.S. market again without doing what it should have done from the start. If you operate a crypto exchange, a money transmitter, or any platform that touches customer funds, KuCoin's case draws a sharp line between two very different kinds of AML failure, and it matters which one a regulator thinks you've committed. A program that's underfunded or slow to keep pace with growth is a resourcing and prioritization problem, and it's the kind of gap an independent program review typically finds before it becomes a headline. A program that's designed, deliberately as a growth and retention strategy, to prevent identity verification or to misrepresent your customer base to regulators is not a resourcing problem. It's the difference between a fine and a guilty plea, with individual founders facing personal forfeiture and deferred prosecution. If your platform has ever grandfathered old accounts out of a new KYC requirement, treat that population as a live gap, not a historical footnote. It's exactly the detail that turned KuCoin's eventual 2023 KYC rollout into too little, applied to too few, too late in the DOJ's telling of the case. And if any part of your onboarding flow makes it easier for a customer to avoid disclosing their true jurisdiction than to disclose it honestly, assume a regulator will eventually read that design choice as intentional, not accidental, because that's exactly how KuCoin's was read. An email address, $9 billion in suspicious and criminal proceeds, a customer base actively hidden from regulators, and, as of this year, a permanent ban from the U.S. market on top of the original criminal penalties. KuCoin's case is a reminder that in crypto specifically, anonymity as a feature and AML program are direct opposites, and regulators are now treating the choice between them as exactly that, a choice. I'm a CAM-certified financial crime investigator with over 12 years in this field, and I built fourth pillar compliance to test exactly these gaps: program reviews, red flag testing, and interim BSA-officer support, built around the failure points that actually show up in real enforcement actions like this one. I left the same free red flags checklist in the description. If you want to understand how these cases actually get built, not the headline, the mechanics, subscribe. Educational only, not legal advice. Everything here from public court filings and regulator press releases. I'll see you in the next one.